Okay, so now let's see how we can use Wireshark to discover suspicious activities in our network. And before I do anything, I'm going to go to the preferences. And I'm going to go to protocols, ARP. And I'm going to enable the option to detect ARP request storms. What this will do, it'll actually discover if anybody is trying to discover all the devices on the network, and it's going to give me a notification. So I'm going to click on OK, and I'm going to start my capture. And now I'm going to go to my Kali machine, and I'm going to use net discover. So I'm not going to do ARP poisoning. I'm only going to try to discover all the connected devices to my network. So we're using exactly the same command that we used before, net discover, interface, and the range. I'm going to hit enter. And we can see that net discover finished. It discovered all the devices that we have. So if we come here, even before we look at the output of the notifications, let's just look at the packets that have been generated. You can see that there's a device here. This source is broadcasting, so basically it doesn't have a destination. It's asking all the other devices in the network, and it's inquiring about each possible IP. So it's basically asking who has this IP and tell the 67 IP, and then it's asking who has the 241 IP, tell the 67, who has the 251, tell the 67. And it's doing this for every possible IP. So it's basically checking if any possible IP in the range exists, and it's asking to return the response to the IP at 10.20.14.67. So from this, we can deduce that someone is trying to discover all the connected devices, and that someone is at 10.20.14.67. Now, if we go on the analyze and expert information, you'll see that we detected an ARP packet storm. So basically it means that there was a single device sending a very large number of ARP packets. So they're probably trying to discover connected devices or trying to discover connected ports. So it's telling us that this person is trying to do something suspicious. Now let's go, and I'm gonna do a ARP poisoning attack, and we'll see if we can get any notifications or warnings in Wireshark. Now I'm going to go to Analyze and Expert Info again. And if we look, we'll see we have a warning here. And the warning is telling us that there is a duplicate IP address configured. So again, this is telling us that the IP address of the router had two different MAC addresses. What this means, basically, it means that someone was tampering with this and tampering with our ARP table, trying to place themselves in the middle using an ARP poisoning attack. Now, we've seen a number of methods to detect ARP poisoning. Let's discuss how we can prevent it or protect ourselves from it. Now, I'm just going to run an ARPA, and we're going to look at our table. There is switches that will monitor this for you as well, and they'll notify you or even prevent ARP poisoning attacks. Another way to do that is, if you look at here, if you look at your router, you'll see that this entry in the table is dynamic. So the type of this entry is dynamic. What that means, it basically, this can change. It's the system allows this value to be changed. You can see right here, you have static values, which basically means the system will never allow these values to change. So you can use static ARP tables, which basically means that you'll have to configure each IP address. So you have to actually configure your ARP table and map each IP address to the MAC address, to the relevant MAC address. But once you do that, even if someone tries to send a response to your computer trying to change it, the system will refuse to change anything because you configured your ARP table to be static. The only problem with that is every time you connect to a network and every time there is a new device connecting to your network, you'll have to manually configure that device to work with your network. So it's not a very useful solution if you're in a big company or if you're in a big firm, but maybe in a small house or in a small company, then this would be a really good solution to prevent ARP poisoning attacks, because everything is going to be static. You're going to have to set it up manually. But when someone tries to do an ARP poisoning attack, even if their attack is successful and they use the best tools they can, your table is set up in a way that it's fixed. It can't be changed. So the system will always refuse to change the values of the MAC addresses, which will basically mean ARP poisoning attacks will never work against you.